I hope everybody enjoyed the Young Coders talks. It's the best bit of the conference, except for the lightning talks. I'm going to start off by doing something I should have done at one point yesterday. So you've seen Alex running up and down these stairs, making sure that these screens are working all the time, and just sort of like switching between screens and making sure everything's going swimmingly. It's a lot of work and it's quite stressful. So if we could give the AV crew a massive round of applause, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. So we have another 10 lightning talks selected for this evening. It was extremely difficult. You all filled in cards. And so, yeah, we've had to turn down some cards that we really wanted to see. We have, I think, 7 new speakers. Maybe, actually, it was 6, I think, in the end. So that's a really good job. It's a very brave thing to give your first talk. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing them this evening. Yes, and I'll give my quick introduction for people who haven't been to our lightning talks before. A lightning talk is a talk of 5 minutes or less. You don't have to have a whole 5 minutes of talk if you don't need. In fact, we particularly appreciate short talks because it allows us to fit in the whole schedule. If somebody, however, gets to the 5-minute mark, I will sneak onto the stage and stick one arm up, at which point I would like you to tap your 2 forefingers together quite hard. It makes a really weird, distracting noise, so it goes like this. Yeah, that's weird. If that happens to you, Vince, then you pretty much have to finish your current sentence. At which point I will raise both arms and there will be a terrifyingly positive round of applause and stamping and whistling and hooting, which sounds like this. I do this for the power, really. I love it. Okay, well, we can move swiftly on to our second talk of the evening, which is Nicole, who is going to talk about what Python is missing. Can we give him a quick round of applause?
Hi everyone. Let me get a feel for the room. Does anyone here like Python by any chance? Okay. Does anyone here know any programming languages other than Python? That's great. Python is a great language. It's really great, but it's missing some features in other languages I think would be useful to add to Python. And if you only know Python, you don't know what you're missing out on. The 2 features I want to discuss are overloading and constants. So the first example I have is on overloading. So here I have a calculator class that only does adding. You can give it 2 integers, 2 strings, or an integer and a string. And in Java, this will resolve to the appropriate method given the types of arguments you pass it. So in the first one, it will resolve to the first call, the second one, the second, and the third one, the third. It's pretty simple, right? But in Python, we don't have this feature. You can sort of get it using single dispatch from functools, but this only works with a single argument. So here, we have an add single function, and you can either have a single integer or a single string, but it doesn't work with multiple arguments. So if we try to overload the method and get another method to add 2 things together, you can say I have an add2 method that adds 2 ints, or one that adds 2 strings, or one that adds an int and a string, just like the Java version. But in Python, only the last one will actually exist, and the first 2 will be ignored. The way around this in Python is to have a single function and deal with all of the edge cases or cases you have. So if your inputs are int and int, deal with that, etc., etc. This is a nice feature to have, but it's quite difficult to have in Python because it's a dynamically typed language. The other feature that would be really nice to have in Python would be like const variables. So if you look at a language like Java, you can have a variable and label it with the word final, and you can't really change that variable anymore. So here you have the IDE complaining, can't assign to a value to a final variable max users. That's pretty nice because you know in the rest of your program that max users will always have that initial value of 100. You can sort of try and get around this in Python. So you have a max users, and here you can override it. So you don't actually have a const max users. The way around this is using type annotations in Python. So you can have an annotation called final, and it'll make your linter complain you can't assign to a final name max users. But this doesn't stop malicious users from doing something like this, and the compile errors go away. The other area where const variables would be useful would be in classes. So here you can create a class and you can modify any of its attributes. A first step to getting around this might be to use like data classes. So you can have frozen equals true, but this doesn't actually work because you can just override it, and if you run this, this will have 1, 2, 3, 4 as the ports. Okay, let's go a step further. The Pythonic way to do it would just be to use leading underscore to tell users, hey, this shouldn't be modified, and you should only access this using host and property, the host property. But this doesn't quite work either. There's so many ways to get around this. So malicious users can just override them using, just assigning directly. And there's some more advanced breaking techniques you can use that make it pretty hard to actually get immutable or constant things in Python. And the workarounds in Python aren't nearly as great as the ones in Java. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nicole. Nicole unfortunately found out that at lunchtime today that if you start a random conversation with me, I will persuade you to give your first lightning talk. So if we could give him another round of applause, please. And now Stephen Dolan is going to tell us how to ask a stock program what it's up to.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Stephen. I work on serious software for important people. So unfortunately for me and my esteemed client, the Count, this software doesn't necessarily always work exactly how I planned. Sometimes I try to do things and it just sort of sits there spinning for a while. So even worse, sometimes these programs don't even have the common decency to just crash and print some exception and tell me what it was that they're doing. In fact, if we look at the terminal where this thing is running, it's just sitting there doing nothing. So how do we go about debugging this? What can we do to find out what's going on? So, I mean, the obvious thing is to read the code. But the code in question is, I mean, it's fairly simple. It seems hard to hide all sorts of slow things in that. There are a bunch of other tools we could look for. We could add extra logging to see how much progress it made. We could use a profiler. Although even those can be a little tricky sometimes. Many profilers are CPU profilers, so they're going to show you where the program is burning electrons, actually doing things. If the program's spending most of its time just waiting for something to happen, some profilers won't show that up as much. So instead, I'd like to explain a really, really simple technique that will help debug this kind of issue. The technique is you add this line of code to your program somewhere. It's just one line. Signal, 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 quit, traceback, print stack. So what this says is, upon receipt of the sig-quit signal, instead of quitting, as is the default behavior, it should dump a stack trace. So if we go to the terminal where this program is running, and we hit sig-quit, we hit control /, which is the shortcut that sends a sig-quit on Unix systems, then we get a traceback. This isn't an exception. Nothing has stopped here. This hasn't interrupted the program and canceled the current request like a keyboard interrupt is. This has just told you what it was doing. And we can just look at that backtrace, and we can see there's some Flask stuff. It's in render template. It's gone through a bunch of templating stuff, and it's gotten from there to this enabled function, and it's in time.sleep for some reason. And sure enough, if we look at so it turns out it was actually none of the code on this page. It was actually in render template it was stuck. Render template contains this check for counter.enabled, and counter.enabled contains asleep. So let's pretend that, I don't know, this is actually some surprisingly slow database connection or some request to a HTTP service that's timing out for some reason. The point is, it's very hard to see that from looking at the code or from adding logging when you don't know where the logging's supposed to go. But you can just add this one line of code to your project and then just start mashing control / whenever it's doing something you don't understand, and it will just tell you what it's doing. Couple of caveats, since I think I have a minute or so left. This is only going to show what the main thread is doing. If you're using a multi-threaded program, you may have to write a second or maybe even a third line of code to print the stack traces from those as well. Control / is a Unix-specific trick. If you want to do this on Windows, there's a very similar one that uses sig break instead of sig quit, and that's the one that's triggered by control and break instead of control and /. It's a similar mechanism, but it is technically much more challenging to use because you have to find the break sysrequest key, which you have probably never pressed and may not even be on your keyboard anymore. But apart from that, it's pretty simple. Here's the line of code again. Add that to your program, then you can ask what it's doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. So, our next speaker is Peter McGinty, who's going to be speaking without slides. So if you give him a big round of applause, please.
Okay, thank you. The title of my talk is How I Got a Job in IT and Received My State Pension on the Same Day. It's a slight exaggeration because I got the new job several years after my state pension, but you get the drift. So you might be under the impression that this is a talk about me. It's not. It's a talk about you and your life, my life, and how we manage it. And I just want you to listen and think about yourself for a moment. And let's take a couple of seconds of silence because I can hear a little sound in the distance. It's a faint buzzing in your ears. And then it gets closer and closer. And then it goes, whoom! That was your life. Yeah? So stop. Listen to it again. I won't demonstrate, but you get the impression. And suddenly you find yourself in a position like I am, and you look back and think, where did it go? Where did it go? And I'm thinking that, we're all the same in that very real sense. We're all time-bound and heading in the same direction. And putting aside the question of whether you want to be working post-65, because you're going to be doing something, I guarantee that. It might be a super yacht down in the South Sea. It might be a job in IT. I'm a data analyst. I work for a London borough looking at social information about care workers and people in care or getting a visit from the social worker. I'm also a teaching fellow at a London university, and I really enjoy those things. And over the years, I've thought about, says looking at his timer, it's gone, my career progression, which has been a bit haphazard. So I've come to the conclusion that there's two categories. There's the S class and the D class. The S class is serendipity. It just sort of happens and evolves as you go along, sort of thing. You're quite happy in your own little corner, doing something that's modestly interested, and then you spot something, and off you jolly well go, and you do that. And then there's the deliberate strategy that says, once a year, or whenever you choose the frequency, I'm going to stop. I'm going to seriously look at what I'm doing. Is this where I want to be going? Is this the trajectory I want to follow into the future? Because you're only getting one chance at it. And I'd suggest that the D policy, the deliberate policy, is the best one. So take a little bit of time, think about what and when and where it's all going. And then when you do that letter to the application and so on, I mean, there's a few steps, and take that day for a decision, to decide to look at yourself. You might say, I'm staying put, but do it. It's a positive decision. And if you decide, well, I'm going to look around. Well, why not? Looking around is free. Looking around is free. Have a chat with friends, colleagues, networks, connections, LinkedIn, and goodness knows what else. But spend a little time on it. And then, fine, you might spot something, or I'm going to have a change of direction, total direction. So what do I want to be doing? Then you spot something, or maybe you're just going to put out a few letters to here and there. I fancy working in sales, advertising, marketing. Write the letter. People often talk about the CV. I talk about the letter to get you the interview. Think of it as one document. You write it, you put it into the AI, it improves it, rewrite it, for goodness sakes. Iterate around. Also, give it to a good friend, but don't give it to a good friend in the same business, because they'll read it the same way as you do. If you've got somebody that did an English Lit degree or something like that, give it to them, because they'll be pedants about grammar and phrasing and make some useful suggestions. Give it to somebody who works in the area that you want. And then you get the interview, maybe. There are 3 people on the interview panel. The decider, the helper, and the HR that makes it not a disaster. The person who's the deciding is as anxious as you, because they don't want to be accused of hiring a turkey. Okay, because that's you. And then there's the offer. You'll never have a better chance to negotiate. Never. So if you've got something on your mind, you want flexibility, you want days off, do it then. And then the start, make a good impression, and then do it again the next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. And now we have Joyrup, who is going to explain to you why you should self-host. Quick round of applause, please.
Whoops, sorry. Just making sure. Okay. So, I'm pretty sure most of you know what self-hosting is, but just in case, I'll give you a light heads up. So when you use a service like Google Photos, for example, it uploads your media, your documents, or stuff on Google's servers. But the question is, why Google servers? Why not your own servers? Why can't you host services similar to Google Photos and other services like Netflix or even GitHub on your own servers? And it is possible. People have spent, some great people have spent a lot of time creating services for us that we can host ourselves on our own servers. So why should we do it? First main reason, it's private. Your data never leaves your own servers. It's your data, your unfinished projects, your media. It should not leave your PC or your own servers and give access to it to cloud providers. Secondly, control. When you have control over your own architecture, be it the hardware, software, you can do stuff that you can't do with enterprise solutions. For example, you can create bash scripts, cron jobs. You can automate stuff that you probably would never be able to do with enterprise solutions. And most importantly, it's fun. It's so much fun. I have spent embarrassing amount of time trying to decipher why my network isn't working. And at the end of the day, it's always DNS. So please, keep that in mind. But how do we get started? For that, I prepared a very simple demo. So we'll be using Git. It's as it says, it's a painless, self-hosted GitHub clone. Not clone, but it's similar to GitHub, Bitbucket, and GitLab. Also, GitLab is also self-hostable. You can find a lot of services that you can host yourself on this website. So I put in Git, there's a lot of services you can host. We'll use Docker Compose. So on their documentation site, they will have a page with Compose file. You just copy it. Compose. Yeah. This is the simple file. That's the image, container name, passing the environment variables, and that's it. We just do Docker Compose up. Oh, wrong version. And any second now. Yep, it's running. You can just do localhost. It's already here. It's that easy. It's not rocket science. It's very easy to get started. You can create your own repositories, and yeah, that's about it. If you want to know more about me or contact me in any way, just do curl jroot.me, and you will have my site. This is self-hosted, by the way. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. So we are 5 talks down. We're halfway. And I know Sean is kind of ready to go. But we're a little ahead of schedule, so I have some announcements that I had to fit in somewhere. So the first one is we have been having trouble with the Wi-Fi in the workshops. That won't be a surprise to anybody who's been in any of the workshops. We have managed to cobble together some essentially bad Wi-Fi for those spaces. So if you are planning to go to any workshops tomorrow, the presenters have posted requirements in the Space 3 and Space 4 Discord channels. I really recommend maybe using your hotel Wi-Fi or Starbucks Wi-Fi to get those requirements installed on your machine before you turn up for the workshop, so that we can really limit what's happening with the access point. I think it's literally plugged into a USB stick connected to a 4G network or something. So it's not ideal, but we can work with it. We've worked with worse. The other thing, and this is where I have to get quite, strict with you all. One of the things we've noticed is a whole bunch of rubbish, litter, being left around the theatre. There isn't really anybody allocated to pick that up during the day, so the organisers have been going around picking it up during the day, which isn't ideal because we're all busy. We're organising a conference. So if you could try to remember to take your coffee cups with you and throw them in a bin. There are bins all around the theatre. Or if you see an orphaned coffee cup, it does happen, people leave them behind, could you just pick it up and chuck it in the nearest bin? And that would make everybody's life a lot easier. Thank you very much. So with that, Sean is now going to tell you how to befriend a crow.
Thank you, folks. So this is my lightning talk. How to befriend a crow, or how to build your own very own crow army. Why would we do this? Why not? It's fun. Crows are really social creatures. They recognize human faces. They recognize voices. I have crows in the back garden. I recognize their calls. They have different voices. I can hear them, and they talk to each other. They talk to each other all around the neighborhood, even though they don't actually spend a lot of time together. They help each other, and they're really, really good at crowdfunding. They're awesome. They're smart. And crow army. Why not? How do you do it? So firstly, this is a picture of the 2 crows that come to visit my back garden. They are Bob and Dylan. For those of you who know who Bob Crow was, we're probably all very old now. And Dylan is, well, it went with Bob Dylan really, didn't it? So they come every day. They come to see me. They don't stay out. They don't stay when I go outside, but they will come and eat. They will come and sit on everything in the garden and look judgingly through the window. How do I feed them? Well, you just drop food when you see them. They eat lots of things. They're omnivores. They like peanuts, dry cat food, try to aim for things low in sugar and salt. Google is a great source of advice here. I occasionally give them Biscoff biscuits, and it's really funny to see them run around with a whole biscuit in their beak. If you can, leave water out for them, especially when it's hot, because water is harder to come by. Talk to them. They will recognize your voice. They will recognize your face. They will come to know you. They may not come to trust you completely. I've been feeding these for 4 years, and they still don't stay on the patio when I'm out there. They don't like being looked at. They recognize eye contact. So don't look at them. Kind of just like, here, have some food. And they will come then and eat it. And let them come to you. And if they don't, they don't. Respect them. Just like with people. If they don't want to be friends, they won't be friends. They love games and puzzles. They may throw things at you. Sometimes they like to just drop acorns on your head as you walk past, and they will caw at you. And they like it when you show that you enjoy it. By throwing things back, but not like directly at them, just kind of like pick them up and throw them, and they will enjoy that. They may love puzzles. I have bought a set of stacking cups, and I used to hide food in the bottom bit, and then they would unstack the cups to eat the food at the bottom. And they figured that out really quickly, and then stole all the cups so I couldn't do it again. One of my neighbours said, "Is this your cup I found on my roof?" Yes. They understand water displacement. You may have seen videos on YouTube of them going, ooh, put rocks in water so the food floats. Because like Archimedes, that's another one from the garden, they shout, Eureka! I have a lot of these. There are some caveats. Another picture. This is definitely Bob. He has the droopier wing of the two crows. They are wild animals. They may never come close to you, and you have to be careful. You don't want to make them too friendly with humans because not all humans are safe. But they're pretty good at understanding that. They hold grudges. They will tell all their friends. If they don't like you, every crow in the neighborhood will never come near you again, and it may dive bomb you. So don't annoy them. Don't throw things at them. Don't hurt them. Don't chase them, because they will remember that. And I read somewhere 17 years they will hold a grudge for. This is longer than me, because I can't remember anything from 17 years ago. If you have pets, do consider interaction between them. So if you'll feed them in your back garden and you have a cat that likes going out and hunting birds, that may be a consideration that you don't want to do. And it is a great responsibility to be the commander of a crow army. Ours, at one time at 5 a.m., stood outside the gutter of our bedroom window and started yelling because there was a fox in the garden and they didn't like it, so they were trying to wake us up to make it go away. And they will do that. They will learn that you can help, and they will ask you for help in the most annoying ways. And for some very, very shameless picture sharing, just from, because I love them. These are Bob and Dylan. They have learned that humans sit on the chairs to eat, so they sit on the chairs to demand food every day. That last picture on the right is one my partner took while I've been away of, I think that's Dylan, staring through the window going, "Where's the little one? I haven't had my peanuts. Where's the little one with the glasses?" And they will just stare there. So, yep, that's how to befriend a crow and build your own crow army.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, and now you're not going to like this next slide. Mika is about to ask, is Python good now?
Yeah. Hello. 10 years ago, I was a young software engineer, and I wrote this blog post about doing Python development, like backend development. And I actually switched away from Python. But now it's 2025, and I'm doing Python again, backend development again. So let's look at it. Like, was I wrong, or has Python changed? Okay, first claim. Debugging and profiling live systems is hard. I would like to profile a Python process with tens of threads. Like, those were the times. But, well, you saw the traceback trick in the previous talk, and like, that's already something. I don't know if I knew about that 10 years ago. But we also have memray. We had to talk about that. And PySpy. Python supports now prof. So I would say Python has made huge strides here. Deploying is awkward. I don't think Python has made much progress by itself, but the world has changed. Now we have Docker, and you just put your code and dependencies in a container, and you ship that. So kind of problem is solved even if it wasn't by Python community. Okay, standard library. Python is batteries included, but the batteries leak acid. So Python 2.7 was terrible time. Because there was no Python 2.8 coming, you couldn't get any upgrades to standard library. But now we are living with Python 3, and there's like new minor release every year, so problems actually get fixed. So that's a big win. And also Python packaging is good now, so you don't even need to use the standard library. Poor support for functional programming. I actually switched to Clojure, so that was like the kind of person I was at the time. But really, I was wrong about this. Like, it didn't end up mattering. Because the one part of functional programming that matters is pure functions. So if your function takes data, it shouldn't mutate it in place, but it should return a new copy with the mutations. And that you have been always able to do in Python just fine. So yeah, I was wrong there. Poor concurrency support. So a couple of things have happened. Nowadays, we don't really do threads that much, but instead we like add more Kubernetes pods or things like that. But we also have async I/O, and we have trio if you need structured concurrency. So really, like, both world has changed and Python has changed for much better. And finally, I don't think any other language knows how to do async stuff super well either. So like, we are not lagging behind either. Okay, limited language extension possibilities. This is still a problem. We don't have macros. You can like decompile Python bytecode and then try to do some tricks there, but that's kind of terrible. This hurts me every day. Finally, awkward tooling. Now, there has been huge wins for Python. We have UV, like I love UV, there's rough, we have good type checkers now, we have MyPy and everything, we have Jupyter, so like, yeah, this is perfect now. So, in conclusion, I would like to kind of update on my blog post. Python is definitely good enough now for network programming. And one more thing, the frog is from Manchester Museum. You should go there and look at the frogs. Thanks.
Thank you, Mika. So now Daniel is hopefully not going to draw out his next talk on analog tooling in a digital world.
Okay, so I have slides, but we're going to look at this one for most of the time. I was at a parent conference, a parent evening the other day at my kid's school, and there was a couple parents, and they had, one of them had a remarkable tablet, you know, just writing on it. The other parent had an iPad, and I was once at a conference where I was writing, you know, in a notebook, and the person next to me also had a remarkable tablet. I'm not opposed to technology. I mean, like, I use Arch, by the way, so I'm at the cutting edge. But one of the things that I'm very particular about is my tooling. So I have a framework because it has repairability, which I really believe in. And I also like, you know, notebooks, and I like the whole tactile sense of it. So last night we were at dinner, and Daniela was, and the bill came, Daniela said, oh, I wish we had a pencil so we could calculate how much everyone owes. And I said, oh, you know, I have pencils. And he's like, oh, no, it's okay. But then we each self-calculated how much we owed. And he said, you know, what would come in handy is if we had a pencil to cross out as we pay. So Mark got my bag, said how heavy it was. And I brought out my pencil case. So this is a Clairefontaine pencil case, and it's full of pencils. So Daniela went directly for the yellow pencil. It's the Harvest Professional made by Musgrave. And I asked him, you know, just out of curiosity, why did you go for that particular pencil? Because there's all these other ones, and the Harvest was at the bottom. And he said, well, for me, it's the one that looks most like a pencil. As a kid, I used a lot of yellow pencils, so For me, I tend not to use yellow pencils. Some of the pencils that I have in my pencil case, and it's a variation of a YouTube series, What's in My Bag. The first ones are the Palomino Blackwings. And these are made out of Japanese cores with California incense cedar. If you're of my age, you can remember when you were young and you would sharpen the pencil and you snipped the pencil and it smelled really good. It's because of the type of wood. Apparently, incense cedar is technically not cedar, but a different type of wood. Palomino bought the Blackwing name because the original Blackwing pencil was discontinued. Because the little clip that holds the eraser, the machine broke. They decided we're not going to fix the machine. We'll use the rest of the stock. I mean, this pencil is not used by anyone, like, anyways, except for really serious artists. And when they discontinued it, for example, Stephen Sondheim went and bought all the pencils that he could. Now they make various editions. The top one is the Jackie Robinson pencil. I'm a huge Dodgers fan, so I bought it. The second one is the California /surfing pencil, the Blackwing 840. The next one is one of the originals on which it was modeled, the Blackwing 602. I really like it because it says half the pressure, twice the speed. And the last one is the comic book pencil, sort of the 4 colors representing the offset colors. I really like Japanese pencils, so I have a couple more. The top one is the Tombow 100 Mono R, the Tombow Mono R. The 100 Mono is a very deluxe pencil with a piano lacquer. It's beautiful. The one underneath is another Tombow pencil, 8900, and this is actually a hack wing because I took the ferrule for one of the Blackwings and tipped it on the pencil. You also see an NJK long point sharpener, which is my favorite sharpener that I can carry around. My favorite is actually made by Mitsubishi, the NH20, which is a crank, but it's very impractical because if you take it with you, the shavings just get everywhere. I just discovered from someone at work the Sakura Arch foam eraser. Beautiful, beautiful erasing. Not to leave out the Americans because I am from the United States. These 3 pencils are made by Musgrave, one of the last remaining pencil companies in Shelbyville, Tennessee. The top one is Tennessee Red, and I actually have a sticker of the Tennessee Red on my laptop because I love it so much. This is made with an old type of cedar. They rediscovered some slats, they made it. It has a very spicy smell, really, really beautiful. The News 600 is a pencil that's left over from the time where you had to write a newsprint. If you see a pattern, I really like soft pencils, and the 600 is the softest one, but the graphite just breaks all the time. And then rounding out the set, there's a Staedtler pencil holder. Staedtler is a German pencil company, but this pencil holder, very expensive, very beautiful, is only made in Japan. In the center is a Caran d'Ache red and blue marker pencil. And sometimes, you know, when you need to sign important things, you need a pen. So I have a PYCON pen that I very rarely use. So all these things are here, and they're going to go back into my pencil case. And I will leave the stage now. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. The beauty of everyday things. I love it. Abhishek is now going to talk to you about how to design an effective test strategy.
All right. Hello, everyone. That's a hard one to follow up. But today I'm going to be talking about testing and designing effective test strategies. I'm Abhishek, and my day job is working on automated testing of satellite communication systems. And before this, I worked on similar kinds of things with surgical robotic systems, so quite different. So when I talk to developers, especially junior developers, about what they think testing strategy means, I usually hear something like, test strategy means writing good unit tests. And I'm here to say that that is not quite what I'm talking about. Testing strategy is sort of a bigger picture thing that we want to look at the holistic strategy for designing tests, and that goes far beyond just unit testing. So how do we start thinking about overall test strategy for a particular product? So I'm going to show you this, which is the V model from systems engineering. You will probably have seen this before. It talks about how to go from customer needs down to requirements, designing, implementing, and then translating that all up to integration and testing and verification. So the thing I'd like to point out here is the whole right-hand side of the V is about test strategy, and that's everything we need to think about. Also, in agile processes, the process is a bit more repetitive, so we need to be able to deal with the changes that come with doing that. So how might we start doing test strategy design for a system like this? So it's made up of 3 components, A, B, and C, which are integrated together in stages. Well, the first stage makes sense. We test each component in isolation using unit tests, but then in preparation for integration testing, we probably want to test each component against a stub or scaled-down version of what it's going to be working with. So A against a stub of B and B against a stub of A. That de-risks the integration when we have everything together as a subsystem, so we can test that, and then the next stage is testing it against a stub of component C and vice versa. Finally, you have the whole system as a whole, and you can check that it's meeting its requirements through verification, and that it's actually meeting the customer needs through validation. Fundamentally, testing is a de-risking exercise that's done in stages. We don't want a big bang integration right at the end. So there are many more types of testing than what I've talked about. So you have functional testing, you have regression testing to check performance against a previous version, exploratory, which is essentially just trying to get someone to break things, or load and soak and performance testing, where we just want to see it meets particular performance targets, or failover, so if a particular component fails, does the rest of the system still behave as we expect? And many more. So fundamentally, the point I'm trying to make here is a well-defined test strategy that should think about all of these things and should be documented. So at each stage, you know who is going to be testing what, how it's going to be tested, and against what components. As much of this should be automated as is sensible. It doesn't make sense to do automatic exploratory testing, but for everything else, manual tests are slow and boring. So you should try and have as much automation as you can. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhishek. Well, I'm afraid we have reached the final talk of the evening. Yes, it's Charlie. There we go. I haven't got the right slide up. Excuse me. There we go. Charlie is going to explain how to split the atomic in Django.
Okay. Whew, it's hard to see. Hello everyone, I'm Charlie. I work at Kraken Tech. We use Django to build a very large application. How big? 12 million lines of code. Hopefully today or tomorrow. We use Django's Atomic, but we are moving away from it because it has some problems. We've been working on a system called Django Subatomic, which we open sourced a couple of days ago. It's going to solve some problems I'll explain. So, Atomic has some permissive defaults. Imagine you are running a job, you run it in a transaction. If it works, you set it to done. If it fails, you set it to failed. It's all great, you've done it in an Atomic transaction, except you didn't because this gets called from somewhere else. This outer Atomic block is the actual transaction, that one in the middle is not. So when this exception gets raised, it gets rolled back. The status is not failed after all. We are introducing, the outermost atomic block that you run will be a transaction. The innermost one is a save point. It's a thing that you can roll back and continue within the transaction. They might not be in the same place. It's hard when looking at it to know which you actually get. Transaction. Atomic does transactions, which are begin, commit in SQL. Save points can be rolled back, as I've said. The important thing to know is that depending on the flags and the context that you pass in, Atomic's going to do a different thing. We've introduced Django Subatomic, which has explicit transaction and save point. There's no ambiguity. Set transaction will always fail if you're in a transaction. Save point will always fail if you're not in a transaction. So we've got a whole bunch of other tools in here which will help us. Imagine you have a function which does two things. You might want to wrap it in Atomic to make sure it happens together, but it's not really the responsibility of this part of the code to decide where that transaction should happen. So you say, maybe call me in a transaction. If you use Atomic, you're going to get an unused save point. You've got needless round trips to the database because you're not actually rolling it back anywhere. This bottom one, no one's going to wrap it in transaction. They've forgotten. We've introduced transaction required. It doesn't do queries. It stops you from calling the function without an atomic block. The other side of that is we've also got durable, which will make sure that you're not wrapping a function in an atomic block to accidentally roll back something that shouldn't be rolled back. Right, another problem you might not know about with on-commit in Django. If you are not in a transaction and you tell it to do something, it will do it immediately, even if it looks like it's going to do it later. So this on-commit actually doesn't happen when the atomic block exits, it happens straight away. We've introduced run after commit, which will blow up, it will throw an exception if you're in the wrong database. Okay, so more to do with on-commit transactions. In tests, Django doesn't run on-commit actions because it runs most tests in transactions. They're rolled back at the end of the test, so there's no point at which an on-commit action can be run because it never hits the end of the transaction before the end of the test. But if you use transaction, as mentioned before, you have enough context to know that you are representing a transaction, and so you can run after commit callbacks. Then you can have more realistic tests that actually run after commit callbacks in the place where your production code would, and you don't have to use a transaction test case, which can be really slow in comparison. Transaction test case is one which doesn't open a transaction first, and it lets you manage your transactions, but it has to truncate every table. So it's really slow. So if you use Django subatomic, you'll get more guardrails. You'll do fewer queries. You'll have more realistic tests. It's been in progress in production at Kraken for about 2 years. We've open sourced it on Wednesday. It doesn't have good enough docs yet. It's got good tests. We'll be writing docs at the sprints, so if you're interested, please come help. You can find it on PyCon UK.
Thank you, Charlie. And that concludes the lightning talks for today. Could we have another big round of applause for all our speakers? We had 6 new speakers. Can we give them a massive round of applause, please? Fantastic. So just to round off the lightning talks this evening, because we've got a couple of minutes left. There may have been something glaringly obvious to, I suspect, certain members of the audience, which is, I would say that all of our speakers this evening were male. I didn't ask their pronouns, but we have many genders represented at this conference. Obviously, like most tech conferences, it's overwhelmingly male, but we do try to be as welcoming to everybody who comes to our conference, and I would really like to see some less male speakers on this stage. So, I would encourage you, please submit a lightning talk if you have one, or if there is something that you're aware of that is making you more reluctant to submit a talk, please grab me while I'm walking around the conference to let me know, and we'll see if we can do something to fix that. Otherwise, my name is Mark Smith. I've been your host for this evening's lightning talks. We'll be doing this again tomorrow for our final day of lightning talks. Thank you very much.